Hi, I'm Andrea and welcome to Productive C#. In this video, I want to show you how you can create an ASP.NET Core application, run this application inside a Linux container running on Windows. Before we start, make sure you installed Docker for Windows, and you should be able to see this icon on your taskbar and see that Docker for Windows is actually running. Now, here I have Visual Studio 2019, and I created an ASP.NET Core application. That's a normal empty application that contains just a basic web application. I want to show you how you can create an ASP.NET Core application from scratch and enable Docker support, and how you can enable Docker support to an already existing application. So if I want to create a new app, I need to go to File, New Project, select ASP.NET Core Web Application, Next. Then you can give it a name, test. I'm not going to do it. I just want to show you the process. Create. Then Visual Studio is going to show you the settings of the ASP.NET Core application. And one of those settings will be to be able to enable Docker support. There we go. Now I have web application. I select ASP.NET Core 2.2. You can enable or disable HTTPS, and you can enable Docker support. When you do that, you can specify if you want to run your application inside a Windows container or a Linux container. And by default is using Linux. Then you do create, and automatically you get the application created with Docker support. So let me close this, and let me show you, let me reopen the project solution that I already had, Productive C# Docker. So this application doesn't have any Docker support at the moment. So the way to add it is you right click on your project and then add Docker support. So what Visual Studio does under the covers, after you specify the target operating system, that I choose Linux, is creating a Docker file for you. So what is a Docker file? So you can think about a Docker file as is a configuration file that describes how you want to package your application and what are all the dependencies that the application requires in order to be able to run as a container. So it's basically source code for Dockers. I want to quickly describe you what this Docker file that is being automatically generated by Visual Studio means. But before doing that, let me show you that you can have a full documentation of how to write Docker file inside the Docker documentation. And this is basically describe all the syntax that you can use inside this Docker file. The interesting things in Visual Studio that you also get IntelliSense, and you get an explanation of what each kind of Docker command means. Okay, first of all, the from allows you to specify a container image that you want to start with. And Microsoft already defines a very compact ASP.NET Core image on Linux inside the Microsoft Container Registry. The Microsoft Container Registry is effectively a repository of container images provided by Microsoft. And this is the image that we are basing our application on. The workdir command create the folder and then make this folder the current folder inside the container file system. Expose allows you to say that you want to allow the consumer of this container to expose the port 80 inside the container outside to the outside world. Then I defined the build by using another image that this one is bigger, contains all the ASP.NET Core, actually the .NET Core SDK 2.2, and this image is necessary because we need to be able to use .NET command line tools in order to build our application. While the previous one, as you will see, is only used to develop, to create the final container image that will not contain the SDK at the end. We definitely don't want to ship the SDK. Okay, so we take the image that contains the SDK, we make the source code, source folder, and we copy our project into the productive C# Docker folder underneath source, and then we run the .NET restore command. We copy everything that this restore command creates, including the source code as well, into the container, and then we switch into this folder and we run .NET build, so passing the C# project file. So this command here effectively run a build of our project inside the container in release mode. Then we define the publish that calls the .NET publish command that creates all the binaries required in order to run our application. The final image that we create is using base. You can see here this name is referencing this build stage, and is saying, okay, but I want the final image to just have the bare minimum ASP.NET Core 2.2 binaries and the operating system, plus I'm copying from the publish stage everything inside, the app folder. So at the end, the final container image will only contains the binaries required to run your ASP.NET Core application, and not like source code or temporary files required to build your project. The entry point command specify the command to run when you want to run your container. So the command will be .NET and the name of the DLL that is effectively the entry point of your application. And that's pretty much it. All this code has been created automatically for you by Visual Studio. Of course, you can customize it if you want, and you can develop your own Docker files and have your own deployment scripts and stuff like that, but Visual Studio already provides this ready for you. Okay, so now inside Visual Studio, I can change and target Docker here, and I can build and debug my application running inside a Docker container directly from Visual Studio. So let me press F5 to actually run this application. So what happens under the covers is Visual Studio is using the Docker command line tools to build an image using the Docker file that we have inside our project. This can take a while the first time you run it, because it needs to download the actual container images that contains the ASP.NET Core from the repository. But what I'm doing now is very quick because I already did this process before. So the build is quicker the second time you run it. So now what Visual Studio is doing is running my container, and it should immediately show the my application running inside my Docker container. There we go. And this is the ASP.NET Core application that I created. As you can see, we are using a port that is automatically being created by Visual Studio, and is this port is redirected to the container 80 port inside. We're going to see how actually you can run this application in a separate video. But Visual Studio does this effectively this for you automatically. It's not just that, but you can also, set a breakpoint and debug your code inside Visual Studio. So that's quite powerful. So you have an ASP.NET Core application running inside a Linux container running on Windows, and you have full debug support of this. If I refresh this page, you can see that we are actually hitting the breakpoint, and you can basically have the same experience as you usually have when you debug an ASP.NET Core application. So I press F5 and the application carry on as normal. So this is effectively the experience that Visual Studio provides for you in order to build ASP.NET Core application that are hosted inside containers. So most of the complexity is hidden from you. There are some concepts that you need to understand in order to be able to develop these sort of applications. And the most important ones are the Docker file, that is a recipe that describes how you want to package the application in the end, the container image that effectively is the packaged application itself. It's equivalent to the executables, of a program. And then the container is the running application. If I go to PowerShell and I do docker ps, I can see all the containers running on my machine at the moment. And you can see that productive C# Docker is one of those containers that is currently running, and this effectively is the container that is running my ASP.NET Core application. So Visual Studio under the covers is using the Docker command line in order to orchestrate and build the container for you. In a separate video, I'm going to show you how you can publish this container into a registry and then give everyone access to it, to be able to actually download it and run it in any environment. Thank you very much for watching.